You are listening to the When I Said Yes podcast, where we are simplifying and accelerating your success by helping you find your next yes. What's up? What's up? What's up? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the When I Said Yes podcast. I'm your host, Darryll Stinson, and I'm so excited because today we are going to say yes to mental health and yes to your best life. And I can't think of a better guest than my newest friend, Akshay Nanavati. He has overcome drug addiction, PTSD from fighting in Iraq with the Marines, depression, and alcoholism that pushed him to the brink of suicide. Sound familiar? I didn't fight in Iraq, though. Since then, he has built a global business, run ultra marathons, which I don't do either, conducted humanitarian work all over the world, spent 7 days in darkness, and explored the most hostile environments on the planet. Combining his life experience with years of research in science and spirituality, he wrote the book Fearvana, The Revolutionary Science of How to Turn Fear into Health, Wealth, and Happiness. How many of you want more health, wealth, and happiness in your life? About the book, the Dalai Lama said, Fearvana inspires us to look beyond our own agonizing experiences and find the positive side of our lives. All the profits from the book go to charity because he's amazing. Akshay is now on a mission to help our human family build a positive relationship to suffering in order to create a life of greater meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. So if you guys have been following me for any length of time, you know that there's so much synergy. We've got the transition, we've got the mental health side, even just our perspective on how you can turn pain into profit or promises, and how you can turn rejection into revenue, how you can turn life's most challenging, hurtful moments into meaningful experiences of abundance. And he's an expert. And I had the privilege of connecting with him through a mutual friend that we both have. And we just talked, we could tell like, hey, there's some synergy here. And man, can I just tell you, your heart impresses me. You've got tremendous humility, and it's genuine. It's not like I practice how to say the right things. It's like truly who I am, man. And I just want to say thank you for that. And feel free to let them know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into talking about your yes moment.
Sure. Yeah. So as far as a little bit about myself, covered it a lot in which you introduced me. Thank you again for having me on the show. And just my journey navigating drug addiction, to overcome that, to joining the Marines. I was born, like the key thing I think is that I was born into a good family, a good life. And I learned how to suffer by joining the Marines. And that's what was the starting point to everything I am today, was when I overcame that lifestyle of drug addiction that killed two of my friends. I mean, I was on this dark path. I used to cut myself. I still have these scars on my arm from burning myself, just cutting myself. It's very self-destructive. Got out of that world, and then joining the Marines. That's when I started to find the beauty in fear, pain, suffering, adversity. Because obviously going to the Marines was hard, let alone not just the Marines as a whole, but like I have a blood disorder that 2 doctors told me would kill me in boot camp. And so I kind of fought through that, fought my way into the Marines. And honestly, the only reason I got in was post 9/11 world. Otherwise, I would not have gotten in. But hey, here's a young, dumb kid wanting to go Marine Corps infantry, right? So we'll find a way. We need a body. And so I got in, and I'm grateful I did. It's something I treasure. And then that led to everything I do now, and everything I now help others do is falling in love with that experience of pain and suffering.
Oh my God, man. Like, I love it. You're right out the gate, throwing punches. Man, I do similar work. But one of the challenges that I face is people who just aren't willing to go relive those experiences. And I always tell them the point is not to re-traumatize you. It's actually to find the beauty that's buried beneath the dirt and the pain. Yeah. Like, talk about like that. Talk to the person that hears what you're saying, but it's just like, I don't want to slow down enough to process what happened to me. I'd rather just keep going full steam ahead.
Yeah. I think a beautiful quote that summarizes it is from Carl Jung, one of my favorite psychologists. He says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Mm-hmm. And he also says, which kind of go hand in hand, he says, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious.
Wow.
And we all have that darkness inside of us. So to your point about it's not about re-traumatizing ourselves. It's about turning that darkness into light, about using that in something meaningful. Like concrete example, when I came back from the war, I lost a friend in the war. I struggled with survivor's guilt. I was diagnosed with PTSD. And, I kept running away from it, doing everything I could. First, it was drinking. Well, drinking for a long time. But sometimes even the positive things we do are just ways to run away from ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like when I came back from the war, I went mountain climbing. I spent a month dragging a 190-pound sled for 350 miles across an ice cap in minus 40 degrees. Amazing expedition. Very positive. People invited me to speak as a result of it. Better than drinking. But truth be told, now when I look back at it, it was just another way to go into places of survival, hostility, just running away from confronting my demons. And eventually, when that ran out, I no longer had a job, an external job. I was starting to build my business. I no longer had the simplicity of life in a hostile environment like a polar ice cap. The demons started to rise, right? Like now I have no external structure forcing me to, like giving me that peace without having to confront my demons. So when that disappeared, the demons started to rise. So now I'm running away from it again, drinking. And I got to a point in my life drinking a bottle of vodka a day. I mean, I still remember I'd be throwing up over the toilet and literally as soon as I'm done throwing up, drinking again. I mean, the darkness, it was just, and it's like I knew what I was doing was horrific. And here I am just downing it again for days on end. And when that changed was when I had to go within to confront my demons, to confront that stuff. And that's not easy. It's far from easy. But that journey, like I always like to say, if you don't seek out a worthy struggle, struggle will find you anyway.
Right.
So I had to find that battle because then I caught on the other side of it. And now, for example, for a long time, I had a picture up of my friend that I lost in the war up on my wall. In fact, I have it right here, actually. I have it right here, this folder, and it says, "This should have been you.
Wow.
Earn this life."
Wow.
And it's an intense thing to look at. That's my buddy who died in the war. But that fueled me. That sobered me up. Now, everybody said how guilt is a quote-unquote negative emotion, how to eliminate my guilt. Guilt never went away. I just learned to use it. Wow. And that's the thing. Once you confront your darkness, you can turn that darkness into light. It's because of that I said, look, I don't know why I'm alive and he's died. I don't know the grand scheme of things. I don't pretend to have all those answers. But what I do know is I am alive. And it's now on me to earn it, to use this life in service of something meaningful, to honor his death, to not waste it. And I mean, if I drank myself to death, which I wasn't far from doing, what honor would I have done to him? To every other person that when I look at the fallen soldiers, and however we want to view it, right? That's my lens because that's my frame, but we all have our own version of that darkness, right? Honor that. Honor the people we've lost, honor the struggle, honor the darkness, and now use it as an access point to light.
Man. I love that so much. I promise you, anybody who's been following me for like any length of time, I feel like I'm listening to myself speak. It's like, yes, I'm just like, I'm getting ready to like shout you down like we're in church or something. For me, it was the change of that coming out of that dark place was I had to hit rock bottom. Like I had attempted suicide and it was in a psychiatric unit where I finally said yes to my faith and to my future. But for you, I mean, did you just wake up one day and say, I'm sick of it? Like, what was the turning pivot point?
It was rock bottom too. I didn't actually attempt suicide, but I was on the cusp. I mean, it was one of these mornings after 5 days of just binge drinking again, right? Woke up one morning right here in this couch next to me, empty bottle of vodka next to me. And I just thought this pattern of sobering up and drinking is never going to change. So I was on the cusp of walking over to my kitchen, picking up a knife and just slitting my wrists. And that was, to me at that moment, it shocked me that the thought even entered my mind. Because even though I was going through these phases of binge drinking and stuff, I was still kind of building a business. I was still running marathons, like, and I had this view of myself to like, I am this warrior, right? Like Marine veteran, like, but who I was being was not conducive and aligned with what I was doing, and like who I envisioned myself. And so when I hit that moment that I was like, I can't believe I just thought about ending my own life. Like that's darkness. And it's not, it was, I mean, I was on the cusp of doing it. It was a serious thought. And then it was like, okay, that something's clearly needs to change. Like this is clearly not working. And so that's when I started delving deeper into devouring books on neuroscience, psychology, spirituality, to learn a little bit more about initially just to heal myself, right? And started reframing my experience of trauma, of fear, of suffering. Because a lot of these things I'd been doing before. When I joined the Marines, I didn't obviously have the level of awareness I have now. So I started to find the beauty in suffering, but I didn't truly understand what that meant till years later. So after that rock bottom is when I started to reframe my post-traumatic stress, reframe my guilt, reframe my suffering, reframe my fear, my pain, and recognizing that these are not demons. These are not darkness. Like that struggle can be an access point to something beautiful. Right. And I learned that like post-traumatic stress is not indicative of post-traumatic stress disorder, but attaching the word disorder changes it completely. And everybody told me I had post-traumatic stress disorder. I was diagnosed with it by the therapist, but I realized that, like, concrete example, survivor's guilt, or even being jumpy with loud noises. Being jumpy with loud noises is a normal human response. When you spend 7 months in a war zone, your brain learns to say loud noises equals death. You better be hypervigilant. You better be alert. Right. It doesn't mean it's a disorder. It's a normal human response. But when we view it as a disorder, we now think there's something wrong with us. And that fuels this downward spiral. So I learned to say, you know what, all these things are there, but we don't even control most of what happens in my brain. So I'm not gonna say there's anything wrong with me. That's why I don't personally ever label myself an alcoholic. I had these struggles, but that's not who I am.
Right.
So I started to reframe that identity, disassociate myself from my demons, and say, okay, I can make those demons work for me and whatever I want to do with them.
Dude, that's so good, man. That is so amazing. So, like, oh man, there's so many things I want to say. Like, I just got to get this out. I'm so sorry. This is going to be a mini rabbit trail. We should probably just talk about this afterwards. But first of all, like, let me just say that picture that you have is powerful. And I have something not as at all as serious, but it is as inspirational in the sense that I've got a picture that I took in high school at my, we have an open house, which is like you celebrate the fact that you're graduating. I took a picture with some friends, and I've used this in speaking engagements before, where I will show people the picture, and then I'll X out the people who have died, went to jail, or are just like in a very bad place in life, and then there's like me, and I'm like, man, this is crazy of how I'm lucky to be where I am, and there's people in that picture who are more gifted, more talented, smarter. And just did not have either a father figure in their life like I did, or whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate. So it serves as fuel and motivation. And so, man, we share that in common as well. But talk about Fearvana, and same thing here. Like, I was listening to you, like, that's the same thing I went. So after I attempted suicide and I had that moment in psychiatric unit, I was like, well, I'm alive for a reason. And I actually struck this deal with God. I was like, well, since you saved me from suicide, make my life worth living. And then I spent 5 years researching. It just sounds like you are a better researcher than me. Because I just started researching. And then I was like, you know what? Like, I mean, TEDx talks, books, like everything. So I'm trying to find purpose, meaning, happiness, and how do I become like successful and elite? Like, so you went through like a similar process, and then you created Fearvana. Am I correct? Talk to us about that, and like what's the process like, and what are some key learning points for people on how they can take those experiences and create a better life out of it?
Yeah. So once I hit that rock bottom, started delving in and it led me eventually to this idea of Fearvana, which is, so fear and nirvana, they're two seemingly contradictory ideas, right? Everybody says fear is something bad. When I do talks around the world, I'll often start with putting words up on the screen, and I'll say fear, stress, anxiety, pain, suffering, adversity. And you can do this anywhere in the world. And I'll ask them, how many of you think of these as positive words? Nobody raises their hands. And the whole ethos of Fearvana is that fear is an access point to nirvana. Fear and nirvana are not opposites. They're seemingly contradictory, but they're actually complementary, and they can coexist. Yes. And that's the fundamental ethos, is to help people reframe that. Like, it's not about being fearless. People say things like, don't be scared of failure. Be scared of failure. Failure is scary. The thing is, it's not about the fear. It's about what you do with it that matters. Like when people hear the things I do, because I've jumped out of planes, rock climb, I've done free solo rock climbing without rope, been in war zones.
I would not do that.
I don't do it anymore.
I was just see my face. Like, I was like, yes, no.
The level of risk on that is insanely high. So I don't do that anymore. But like, I've done things that are, and see, people hear that and think that I'm fearless, and I'm not. I was terrified of, even when I was a kid, I used to be scared of Ferris wheels, let alone like roller coasters, and now like a 180, right? But I did these things because they were scary. So I'm not fearless to this day. I mean, spending 7 days in darkness, I was terrified of going in there. When I was in Iraq, my job was to walk in front of vehicles looking for bombs before they could be used to kill me and my fellow Marines. So I've engaged fear. It's not that I'm fearless. And the whole idea is to help people say, look, fear is not the enemy. Stress is not the enemy. Anxiety is not the enemy. They are just are. Like there's no bad or good emotions. There are only emotions, and it's up to us to decide what we do with them. But we live in a world that demonizes emotions. There are quote unquote negative emotions. Guilt is bad, fear is bad, stress is bad, anger is bad. They're not bad. They can be whatever we want them to be. So the fundamental stepping stone is to accept the isness of whatever emotion happens. Because firstly, we don't even control most of the emotions. Like right now, if I'm sitting in this room and somebody comes in with a gun, my brain's going to respond with fear.
Yeah.
I'm not choosing to feel it. I'm not pausing to say, let me feel afraid.
Yeah.
My brain reacts that way.
Right.
Most of what happens in our life is a subconscious response to stimuli based on habitual patterns, based on evolution, based on everything that's brought us into who we are today. We don't even control most of what happens in our brain. What we do control is how we choose to respond to that, to the emotion. And that means we have to train ourselves. We have to train ourselves to build a space between the emotion and our conscious, higher, divine self, or whatever you want to call it, however in your paradigm you want to view that higher self. There's a space between that stimulus, the emotion, and who you choose to be outside of it. You got to train yourself to recognize the space, accept the space, and then choose what you do outside of that space.
Wow. So good, man. Man, I'm so excited. I just want to jump for joy. I want to pause and just like high five you, but we can't. We're so far away right now. Wow. Like, talk about some successes that you've seen with Fearvana and how you've been able to transform people's lives because of this process.
So, I mean, I was really blessed. The book was endorsed by the Dalai Lama, who wrote the foreword for my book, and many other people I really admire and respect. I mean, I was honored. Seth Godin, Jack Canfield, Keith Ferrazzi, Marshall Goldsmith. They all endorsed and validated the concepts. So that was really beautiful for me, especially as an unknown author. I had no brand, no platform. As a result, we sold thousands of copies over 42 countries. It continues to grow, and most importantly, the impact that I see. I mean, I've had people tell me that overnight, it got them off opioid addiction. I've helped people with PTSD, like a veteran I was working with 7 years after the war, struggle with anger issues. For the first time, he was able to notice his anger and not get caught up in the anger. Notice that there's a space between the anger and who he chooses to be outside of it. So he felt the anger, but he didn't react to it. He was able to pause and then choose outside of it. So it's helped save people's lives. When I read the reviews on Amazon, it really humbles me to see how much it's transformed people. As a result, I've spoken all over. People have invited me to speak in many different contexts. And we also, as you said earlier, all the profits go to charity. So we supported groups like former child soldiers in West Africa to survivors of sex trafficking in India. So we've raised a lot of money for worthy causes and people in the darkest corners of society who've just seen absolute hell on earth, and I'm blessed to say through the raising money on the book, we've supported them. And that's the greatest success is just the impact it's made, because again, I've been through the darkness, so I know how all consuming it can be. And I'm blessed that I got out, just like, you and me can relate. We got out, but we know people who haven't, I've lost two Marine brothers to suicide. I've lost friends to addiction, lost friends to war. And so not everybody gets out of the darkness. So when I see it, I've had people write me saying just for the first time in their life, they've never thought that fear, stress, and anxiety is not something bad. And just that simple mindset shift has radical effects, because now the next time they feel stress, fear, they're like, oh wait, this is not the enemy. I don't have to feel fearless, because the problem with what happens is people feel fear, they feel stress, and then they think there's something wrong with them because all the quote unquote gurus and experts are like, you should be fearless. Stress is bad. So then they're like, oh, what's wrong with me? They said I should be fearless. And so suddenly now when they see Fearvana, they can accept that there's nothing wrong with me. Like, it's okay to be scared. And they let go of that self-judgment. They let go of beating themselves up. They just accept that, all right, this is part of it. It's not, I don't need to be eliminate it. I can just be with it. Now I can do something with it. So letting go of that self-judgment is really a foundational stepping stone that's helped a lot of people change their relationship to themselves and ultimately their results in life as well.
Dude, so I love that in so many ways, because I know, I'm a pastor and the church culture demonizes negative emotions so much. I remember, I'll never forget, rest in peace, one of my favorite people I look up to was battling cancer, and she would not say that she was any type of sick. We didn't even know she was sick until she was stage 4. And it's just man, you could have said something way sooner. And I get the point of not wanting to manifest it, right? But that's not the point. The point was that to be down, to be depressed, to be sick, to be anything, is so frowned upon sometimes in church culture
Yeah.
and just any culture sometimes
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we can't even experience what could be the beauty of those emotions for
Yeah.
point blank. The moment she said that, the church rallied around her. We raised money for her. We,
Mm,
came like we asked her
mm,
how she was doing. I started to visit her a lot more, right?
mm.
And it's like, look at the love that you just was able to receive because you were transparent.
Yeah.
And I told and I was telling a young lady this was kind of a while ago, but this is a conversation I have often is so you probably do too. She battles anxiety, right? And she has all like this real bad anxiety and things like this, but she's also a very talented musician. And I just asked her this question because we prayed for her and I want it all to go away, right? Like get
Mm.
away, like no more anxiety, no more bad emotion, no more depression, no more feeling low about yourself, right? But I just asked her this question one day, and I'll be interested to know your thoughts on this. But I said, what if God is actually using your anxiety, not that He caused it, but that He's using it so that you can write the most beautiful song that you've ever written?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? What if out of your
Absolutely.
pain
Oh,
comes
absolutely.
something so beautiful? I
Absolutely.
mean, just like, what's your thoughts on that pain or depression, these things that are so like we don't tolerate them because they just seem so negative.
Yeah.
Um, what's your perspective on how they can be leveraged to create beauty?
Yeah, I mean, I love that question you asked her. I've heard with so many artists, it's their pain that leads to their creative genius,
Yeah.
right? And even like Fearvana wouldn't exist if I had not gone through pain. It would not be here today. The lives that it's been able to touch would not have happened had I not gone through the darkness, had I
Right.
not have to confront my own demons.
Yeah.
So we have to go into those spaces, and there's so many ways to do it, from journaling,
Yeah.
meditating, pausing and running and being with yourself. You could take the path I took and go spend 7 days in darkness. I guarantee you'll confront some inner demons
That's
there.
true. That's true.
So, and
Head on,
talking
man.
talking to other people around you who getting outside counsel, going meta on yourself, like pausing and noticing yourself instead of being consumed in the autopilot of the human experience, and going within to confront all those things that show up within ourselves.
Yeah.
And then once you do, it's not the really key thing here is also, it's not just about, because sometimes people hear me saying it and like, okay, what do I do with that once I confronted the demons? It's not just about staying there. You use it in service of something. We need a mission. We need purpose on this earth. We need meaning, right? Like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, one of the
Yes.
most powerful books of all time, in my opinion. Incredible book. Like that's what we are here. We can find meaning even in the darkest corners of hell. Like, I mean, he found meaning in a concentration camp. The level of suffering that man had to endure, like experiencing man's inhumanity to man at the absolute worst level,
Yeah.
and finding meaning in that suffering.
Yeah.
So once we come out of that darkness, find meaning. What is your purpose here? Why are we here? That's what I call your worthy struggle. I
Mm-hmm.
call that your worthy struggle because the path will be hard.
Right.
Like having passion is not a bad thing, but I often don't like the term follow your passion because it conveys the idea, especially to younger kids, that like if you follow your passion, you'll never feel like a day of work in your life and life will be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and all of that. And it absolutely won't. You will go through dark times. It will be hard, but that's
So
not a
good.
bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
I know.
That's why I call it your worthy struggle. And the
Yeah.
thing is too, like the highs are not going to be as high unless you've experienced the low. Like if life was just one static line,
Yeah.
what would that we would I mean, happiness would not exist without sadness. And then the thing is that happiness is not the elimination of sadness. Happiness is the ability to find the gift in sadness.
Yes.
Sadness has its place. It's
Yes.
important we feel like
It's a
if
perspective, man.
yeah, it gives you perspective. It gives you a range in that human experience, that it's about the highs and lows. It's not just this one static line. Like it wouldn't be as exciting as an adventure if it was one static line.
Yeah.
With every summit
Yeah.
comes a valley, man, and
Yeah.
you got to go through both.
Oh my God. So good. I'm just like, I've got so many questions firing off now. But I'm not gonna be selfish right now because I've got personal questions now. And I'm like, man, let me ask you about this. but let me ask you, because I know there's a lot of startup entrepreneurs listening,
Yeah.
people who have businesses and want them, to become full-time, business entrepreneurs. And there's an interesting part that you mentioned in your story that I actually didn't know. I didn't know you didn't have any type of platform before you got some of those big book endorsers
Yeah.
that you had. Talk about like, how did you go about pitching, landing, securing those contracts and deals?
Yeah, with so for example, the Dalai Lama. I mean, here again, no platform, nothing, right? So I thought when I wrote Fearvana, I thought this is a very spiritual concept. Who's the sort of spiritual leader in the world?
Yeah.
Dalai Lama. It'd be cool to get him to endorse the book. And then immediately I sidelined that thought. There's no way. Who am I? All that good stuff we all deal with, right?
Yep.
Who am I?
Yeah,
I'm nobody. And so I kind of sidelined that thought. And then I was really blessed. My first endorsement was Seth Godin, who's also kind of a cold pitch. He just reached out. I really admire that. He's just an amazing human being. He endorsed my book. And so then I had a bit of confidence. I was like, why not try? What's the worst that could happen? So I did a ton of research. I found a name and email address of somebody in His Holiness's office, somebody in the Dalai Lama's office. Reached out to him, shot a personal video sharing my struggles, what I've been through, how it came about Fearvana, what the mission of Fearvana is, and shot that video. Connected to this monk there who connected me to 3 other monks. Now I found the right monk, sent a letter. And then he said, okay, we got your stuff. We'll review it. So 5 to 6 months building a relationship with this monk, following up. And the whole time, and this is really important, the whole time, every time I didn't hear an email back, going through doubt. They hate my book. And at this point, I didn't have, at this point now, I can hand the book to somebody and feel very confident in the book, right?
Yeah.
Before, I didn't have that confidence. I didn't have any reviews. I'm like, literally no, I didn't know if it's actually any good or not. I had some feedback from friends, but not a ton of feedback at this point. So do they hate my book? Do they hate me? Who am I? All the self-doubt, right? All that great stuff we deal in the head. But here's the thing. We are not defined by our emotions. So you can be with the emotion, but not be defined by it. Mm-hmm. So I would notice the emotion and follow up anyway.
Yeah.
Follow up anyway.
Yes.
Follow up anyway.
Yeah.
Build a relationship. After 5 to 6 months of building a relationship with this particular monk, I was truly blessed. He wrote me and said, considering everything you've been through and your genuine desire to serve, I'll press your case. And soon after that, I only asked for like a 1-line endorsement, but I was truly blessed. The Dalai Lama wrote the foreword for my book.
Oh
and
my God.
As you can imagine, one, it was obviously just a personal blessing, totally like just really spiritually fulfilling. But also for marketing the book, game changer. Game changer. I mean, here's a newbie with an unknown author with the Dalai Lama to write the foreword for the book. I mean, that changed everything, So it's like the key lesson for anybody listening is that, like, we're going to go through the doubts. We're going to go through all that stuff. And that's okay. Follow up anyway. Yeah. And I mean, I could have got a no from the Dalai Lama, right? But what if I had never asked? If I had never asked, the answer is always no.
Right.
If you never ask, the answer is always no.
Right.
And I didn't get a yes for every single person I asked for an endorsement. But I sure as hell got a lot of yeses, from the Dalai Lama to Marshall Goldsmith, Seth Godin, Jack Canfield. These are all incredible human beings who I truly admire, made a personal difference in my life. And I got yeses, and that changed everything. That changed the marketing of the book, and now allowed me to serve more people, raise more funds.
So did you like, at that point, did you like republish it or something?
No. So at this point, it hadn't been published. Like, this was just a manuscript. I took time between finishing the manuscript. Okay. Yeah, I took time because in all honesty, looking back, I would have taken even more time to build up more relationships, to have a bigger launch. But it was about 6 months. Maybe more, 6 to 8 months between finishing the manuscript and launching it. So in that time, I was building relationships with people in the media. Right. So when I launched, we got featured on Inc., Forbes, Entrepreneur.com, a lot of media wins, getting all these endorsements. That takes time, right? To get that. But it's obviously worth it.
Wow. So what would your advice be to the people listening that's like, man, I've got this unique concept. I've got this great story. I've got this, what I believe, really unique idea that can help a lot of people out there. Mm-hmm. I just need the backing of people who have bigger platforms, the media, who can help get exposure to this message. How do I go about getting that? What would your advice to them be?
Fundamentally is be so good they can't ignore you. So if you got to live your message, and then I think Steve Martin said that quote, be so good they can't ignore you. Mm-hmm. So you have to live it at the highest level. A big reason Fearvana got a lot of media success is because I live Fearvana. I do things like running 24 hours. I have never stopped. I mean, just my 24-hour run was 3 weeks ago, So I live that message. So whatever your unique concept is, be a vehicle for it, represent it at its highest level. And then, okay, but now you got a story. It's one thing to have a story. It's another thing you got to pitch it. You got to reach out. Be absolutely ruthless and relentless in your reaching out. I was pitching podcasts left, right, and center. And then I always asked, once I got on a podcast, I would ask for an introduction to another one. So I've been really blessed with getting on the Dr. Drew podcast, Jordan Harbinger show, Aubrey Marcus podcast. These are podcasts with millions of listeners, huge platforms that got me out there. So the key thing is, get clear on your messaging. What do you stand for? What is your philosophy? What's your core ethos? What's your mission? Then get clear on who is your market. Start getting clear on how your market, how your message, how your vehicle solves that particular problem. So for Fearvana is something universal, right? Everybody struggles with fear, but I pitched it differently depending on the audience. So if it's an entrepreneur audience versus an athlete audience, I would pitch it differently. frame it for each audience. What is the audience? Ultimately, it's not about you. It's about it's about your audience. It's about the people you serve on a spiritual level as well as on a marketing level. It's not about what you want. It's not about what matters to you. Like it's what about your audience cares about. So start reaching out, start pitching. You're going to get 100 no's. Great. Do it anyway. You're going to feel a constant amount of doubt. Great. Do it anyway. Like in terms of the mindset is everything. Like be with your thoughts, but do not be defined by your thoughts. Be with your thoughts, but do not define. So when you have that unique concept, like really create new ideas around. Look at how you can stand out in the marketplace. What is everybody in the marketplace saying? And how is yours counterintuitive to that? Don't just be counterintuitive for the sake of being counterintuitive, but anybody with the message can find ways to be counterintuitive. Like a lot of what I teach is counterintuitive to what the current paradigm is, right? I mean, you just heard me say plenty of ways, but so look for ways to stand on the marketplace and then reach out to shows, reach out to media, build relationships. It's all about relationships. Connect with people and be willing to get 100 no's, and you'll get one yes, but one yes makes a difference. And then once you get that yes, ask for an introduction. Just always remember this. You have to ask. If you want something, ask for it. Always ask for it. People have asked me, how did you get the Dalai Lama to endorse your book? And I'll be like, I asked for it. They're like, I never thought to do that. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I never thought to do that. Because how many people would think to ask for the Dalai Lama for an endorsement, right? And I get it. Like I myself was like about to let go of that idea, but if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Wow. So powerful, man. And talk about the other side of that. So you're I don't want to say nobody, because I believe every life matters, but you don't have a big platform, right? And then you get these endorsements and it's like radically changed your life. Now you're doing media appearances. Now you're getting hired to speak. And like, what was that like for you? And how did you deal with like the growth? Like, did you have to go hire a bunch of team members? Like, what was the explosive growth like?
It's something it never stops. So it was a beautiful thing to see these media wins. And then you have to, this is a big mental barrier for me that I was now kind of much better at, is like celebrate the wins and don't just constantly. I was the kind of person that if I ran 10 miles, I'd beat myself up for not running 15. If I ran 15, I'd beat myself up for not running 20. And there's the value in pushing yourself, but it's a miserable existence if you're always doing that. So pause and celebrate the win. So it did make a huge difference. Obviously, my business grew. I actually have a whole course called Massive Publicity Accelerator, teaching other authors, entrepreneurs, experts how to get their message out there, getting publicity. So I have new courses. My platform grew. My credibility grew. My positioning power grew. Because now once you get on one, it's that much easier to get on the second one, right?
Correct,
now when you pitch the next media outlet, when you put yourself out there in the next way, you can say, I've been on this XYZ, right? So it gives you more ammunition and fuel, but you really got to take, personally, it was important for me to pause and celebrate the wins and then use it to fuel. Cause it's still not over, man. Like I haven't truly, at this current point where we speak, I haven't truly pushed over that tipping point edge. Like Fearvana does get, sales consistently now, but I'm not like, million followers on Instagram kind of level yet, right? And that's okay. I mean, I'll keep fighting eventually. I don't know when. Maybe it's 1 year, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3, but it's also about the journey. So really acknowledging, but the growth was tremendous. And I knew that this is what I always wanted. And I'll be very frank. A huge part is obviously that I want my message to reach more people because I know it serves people. I know it makes a difference. And it also satisfies me, like on a selfish way. I absolutely love it. I love public speaking. I love being on podcasts. I love being the front and representing Fearvana. So, it fuels me and it fuels the impact I hope to have and the legacy I hope to leave behind when I'm gone.
You know what I should do? Because, and this is no disrespect to, and I have the utmost respect for anyone who shares their story, and is courageous to do so. But, I should put in my application, do you love what you do? Because there's a huge difference of the people I've interviewed and they love what they do, or they're just successful at what they do, right? And don't love it. You can tell the difference between this is what I do versus man, this is who I am, right? And it's kind of how I started off the intro. I could sense that from you, that this is just how you are, man. I know our time is coming to a close here, and I want people to connect with you. What's the best way for someone to connect with you?
You can find me at fearvana.com. That's Fearvana. Reach out to me, find me there. The book is also available on Amazon in Kindle, Audible, paperback. As I said, all the profits go to charity. So check out the book and find me at fearvana.com. And also social media, Instagram is Fearvana. Instagram is the one I use the most.
Okay.
So that one, yeah,
Sweet.
find me there.
On IG, baby. Yeah, I saw you on there. Your picture, I was like, man, you're owning this thing, man. Like, it's eye catching. I like it.
Thank you. Thank
Man,
you.
so cool, man. I can't thank you enough. I honestly, you and I could probably talk for like
I'm
7 hours,
sure.
and I wouldn't get bored. Not run for 7. And there's so many things that you said that I know is helpful to our audience, and I
So,
want people to connect with you. I want people to read your book. I have it. I have not read it yet, but I'm even more inspired to do so now. Man, again, love your humility, your genuineness, your authenticity.
thank you.
It resonates with me at a high level. This is the moment where I want people to make a decision. I don't believe in listening to information and walking away not thinking about how you can apply what you learned. So right now, I want you to say yes to something you heard today. Say yes to your mental health. Say yes to asking. Like a big part of his journey is just asking. And to be honest with you, that was something that was hard for me.
Mhm.
Because and usually it's the people who are the most generous that have the hardest time asking because you're so used to giving that you're like don't want to ask because it
Yeah,
feels like
yeah.
you're
I
taking.
feel yeah,
But my mentor taught me that asking is actually how you continue to circulate the good and allowing somebody to have the same feeling that you feel when you give.
exactly. Yeah.
So ask for endorsements, ask for advice about how to build a better business, ask for help with what you're going through, ask. Like say yes to making
Mhm.
an ask today.
Mhm.
That really resonates with me right now. So that's what I want you to do. And obviously connect with my friend everywhere he is. And man, I'm excited if you can't tell. I'm usually not this rocked after an interview. Like I'm usually pumped and on fire, but I'm like, my mind is turning in 7 different directions because I feel like I met my brother from another mother. So we're going to chat and we love you guys. Till next time, remember that man, you're only one decision away from a totally different life. Make sure that you subscribe, leave a comment, a review. It helps us to spread this information all over the world. And please don't be stingy. Share this information. This is a free podcast. I did not pay him to do this. He did not pay me to be interviewed. We did this for free because we want you to share this information for free for people who need to hear how their fear can become one of the greatest miracles and blessings in their life. All right. Till next time, we love you guys. Peace.
You are listening to the When I Said Yes podcast, where we are simplifying and accelerating your success by helping you find your next yes.